All right, great. I see you're at your house. Is that right? Your kitchen?
Yes, but
Okay.
I'm gonna do
Okay.
that to
All
it.
right. Great. Okay. All right. So good to see you. All right. So
And you?
maybe yeah. Been really young. A lot of things has happened.
Hmm.
Being really I think can definitely sense feeling that things are scaling up. Is like speeding up forward. So there's a lot of developments, I should say. Okay.
Yeah, certainly are.
Although
Um,
yeah. All right.
I've got to say right at the
So
very beginning,
all right.
I've got to leave at
Okay. Okay.
latest 10 past 12. Very latest. Okay. So
What what
just so you
uh
know,
what what is it? It's okay. Is it
11. It's
11
11 o'clock
for
now.
you now?
Yeah, yeah. So
Okay, okay.
absolute maximum
So
is an
latest
hour and
at
ten
what?
minutes. 10 past.
Oh, okay.
10 past 12.
That's excellent. Excellent. All right. Yeah, perfect. All right. Okay. All right. So yeah, let's start. Sharing some wins. You like to start wins, commitment, obstacles, and wisdom learned.
Um, Wins. I think
Right.
just getting back into the routine, really,
Okay. Okay.
of structure. And I tell
Mm-hmm.
you what, that this is something that struck me last week when I was
Right.
talking to you about the weekly planner,
Uh-huh. Right. Right. Right.
and it really whilst I was talking to you about it, it just suddenly
Right.
struck. I've left it at the office,
Mm-hmm.
but the front part of it, you can put out loads of different strategies for the quarter,
Right. Right.
right?
Right. Right.
And you
Mm-hmm.
list them all down. And the two times that I've done this,
Right.
I've listed a whole 2 pages.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 pages is
Okay. Okay.
24 items. And
Right.
when I
Right.
was
Right.
talking to you,
Okay.
I said, well, 24, if it's for a quarter, um, that's eight. That's 8 items. I went, oh, okay, that's
Right.
8 items.
Okay.
And if you
Mm-hmm.
roughly say that there are 4 weeks in a month, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's 2 items per week.
Okay.
But when
Uh-huh.
you break it down like that, 2 items per week to get done as strategic goals to make your quarter successful,
Right. Mm-hmm.
that's not a lot,
Okay.
you
Okay.
know?
Right.
That's actually
Mm-hmm.
really very easy.
Okay.
And that's what kind of really made me what's the word? I don't know the right word. It just opened my eyes really, and just how simple. And this is the thing
Like
about
do
our
becomes doable.
yeah, exactly. So our friend Dan,
Mm-hmm.
what he's done is over the last 50
Mm-hmm.
years, he's condensed learning every year on year with each different customer. There'll kind of be iterations, and then that will actually bring
Mm-hmm.
about, an increased knowledge and experience and all the rest of it. And plus his innate thinking as well. But I think the thing is, it's like taking the structure, and I suddenly realized, and this might be the learning, that there is freedom within structure. Now,
Mm-hmm.
in the Baha'i
Okay.
writings, there's this
Mm-hmm.
concept of man can only gain freedom through conforming to the will of God.
Okay. Right.
Now,
Right. Okay.
that sounds like a contradiction. How can you gain freedom? True freedom comes from
Mm-hmm.
conforming to the will of God. And so how can you have freedom in your day, in your structure, if you're following a structured process? So freedom from structure.
Mike,
And
you're breaking up now. Sorry, you're breaking up. Is my voice still all right for you? Uh, no, okay. All right. Is my voice all right though for you?
Yeah, of course, it's fine. It's most likely that these needed charging. So I'm just going to turn them off
Ah, I see, I
and
see.
leave
Okay,
them as it is.
okay. So it's slowing down. Yes, much better now. Much better now. Thanks. Yeah.
So that idea about
So you were
you
talking
gain,
about the Baha'i writing. Right.
Yeah, so you get freedom through conforming to the will of God is freedom, right? So, and how does that work? But what I realized,
Mhm.
and that's always been a confusing thing for me, but what I realized in filling out this form is that by filling out the form and following the
Mhm.
structure, that structure actually allows freedom, because it allows you the freedom to think, it allows you the
Oh,
freedom to
okay.
3 days, it allows you to have the freedom to recuperate, it allows you to have freedom to be inspired, and so on and so forth. It also gives you structure so that you can achieve the goals that you've created. And it also gives you structure so that you can see whether or not and measure whether or not you're achieving the goals that you've created. So there's a whole kind of mechanism there that works on many different levels that I found really, really interesting. And so I'm actually really very
Okay.
keen to keep pushing at this. Plus, Friday afternoon, Ardos, prep ready for the week. I know what everything is for the
Mhm.
week ahead. And that's it.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
gonna
Wow.
take
Wow.
forward.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that, I think, is, whether or not you want to call that wisdom or learning or all that kind of stuff, that's where I think that's what
Right.
win, etc. Obstacle is always going to be me.
Okay. What's the commitment though? I mean, what's the current present commitment for you?
Well, I think it's commitment to achieving the goals that I've set for the week.
Okay. 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 So is there any particular one in particular that
Well, I think there's a
that
rather
stands?
urgent one that's just appeared over the weekend,
Mhm.
and that's
Okay. Okay. All right. Good. Wow. So what's the obstacle?
well, it's always, like I say, the obstacle's always going to be me. I think you can only ever put
Okay.
yourself in the obstacle because you own it, regardless. Let's say with you or I, right? So you might sit there and go, well, Mike's the
Uh-huh.
obstacle because he hasn't responded on time for the thing that I asked him for. Likewise, I might go, Shunyun's the obstacle because he hasn't responded on time for the thing. Okay, that might be true, but really
Mhm.
the obstacle is oneself, because one knows, that you're dealing with another person, and you can never predict how the third party is
Mhm.
going to react and respond, and therefore you have to kind of,
Right.
accommodate for that and own it. So you might
Mhm.
say I'm the obstacle because I fear failure, or I've got FOMO, or whatever the kind of psychological blah blah is.
Mhm.
Or you're owning it because the other entities, the other parties involved are not performing the way that you want them to. So you have to own that. And if that's the case, then your way of explaining to them what you want is
Mhm.
not clear enough. And that's your
Mhm.
ownership. See what I mean?
Okay.
And I use you and I as an example. I mean, you
Right.
can apply
Right.
to anybody anywhere, and
Right. Right. Very
so
true.
that's kind of where I think that's what I think an obstacle always is. And I don't think you can ever, I'd be hard pressed to find another answer. I can't think of another answer to that.
Wow. Wow. That's very impressive. Okay. Okay. Wow. So I guess so the wisdom is structure allows freedom, right? That's what
Yeah.
you like here. Okay. Wow. So I think maybe just one feedback on this, okay? Which is I think there's a balance between structure and free form, kind of spontaneity, okay, in terms of unstructured, unplanned activities. So I have personally I found values virtues in both, right? And I think I've listened to others, including Ben, talk about that kind of. So I guess it's also about how you kind of create kind of space for the unplanned, unstructured things, which sometimes allows spontaneity. Although that's planned as well. Okay,
But that's the
I
point,
mean
isn't
that
it?
block of
Yeah, that's the point. If you've got structure and you know what are the things that are required to be done, then
right.
and you've delegated time and effect to do that,
Mhm.
then it means that you don't have to worry about decision fatigue about getting them done.
Right,
It's
right,
about what has to be done. It's clear about what the timeline that they need to be done by and how you're going to do that. Then you're not going to create a time where a schedule where you're 24 hours a day doing tasks, because that doesn't correlate with free days, buffer days, focus days, right?
Very true.
So you create the days so that you've got that, and within that concept, you're allowing any amount of freedom of thought. The only time that you're really actually being very structured about not being creative is, or actually I should rephrase that. Maybe your focus day is your creativity, right? Maybe. But the thing is, you're saying because your mind has allocated blocks, then in and around those blocks, there is the freedom for your mind to go, well, okay, I know I don't have to think about doing my shoelaces up because I'm going to do that when I walk out the door. Fine. But what if I wanted to paint a picture and I wanted to, do you see what I mean? That structure allows your mind to be free on all the other creative stuff that you want. And I think by that's what I mean by freedom, because you enable the freedom of your mind to wander and do what it wants and be inspired, because it doesn't have to think about, well, have I called Mr. So-and-so about the big deal? Because you don't have to worry about that because you've scheduled that already. If that's going to happen on Tuesday. So that's why I think there's freedom, because the freedom is about allowing you to be free to think and feel and do whatever you want.
I see. Okay.
And that's how you can be creative, is because you don't have to think about, well, am I in flow at the moment? Yes or no? Do I need to put you don't need to worry about that. You will go into flow because all the tasks require a different type of flow at a different type of time. But anyway.
Right. Very true. All right. Thanks. Thanks for clarifying that. I think that's that is indeed, I think, the valid wisdom. Okay. All right. So I'll share about mine as well. Okay. Mine. So, well, the win, the biggest will be signing up Ian. Okay. Which took quite a bit of courage, actually, in different sites. The other thing has been went to see a exhibit at my kid's school. It's a exhibit of Buddhism paintings. Okay, like I think it was a rather magical experience to kind of to see art, how art is being created, being preserved, and also being passing with conveying spirituality, right? That kind of experience. And I would say okay, so I think that's the big win. One thing I'd like to mention about Ian, and there's a subsequent win, is that you asked me all those questions, right? With the message. And I have to be honest. Immediately when I saw that, I was taken back, kind of like feeling tense and a bit concerned, worried that wow, like okay, Mike is probably not happy. It's is my voice still all right? I think the network is a bit unstable on my end. Is the okay? Yeah. So yeah, especially after Mike has spent almost a couple of hours trying to explain me what a dumb idea it is.
It's not a dumb idea. It's not a dumb idea. It's just not. It's just not a. It's not a viable
not prepared, idea. Right? It's not a what?
Viable.
A viable idea, right. Okay, it's not a viable idea, right. I mean that's and it's probably going to like waste money, right? I mean it's because we're not well, I'm unprepared, so yeah. But then the win was well, obviously on the same day I think there were some other events that happened that kind of boosted my mood a bit, maybe family related, maybe other things. When I relook at Mike's message, actually, I was reading it with a lens of gratitude and appreciation and excitement. I thought, wow, so many great questions. I'm sure other people, like investors or other partners, will have the same questions. So, if
Why
I
do
can
I
properly,
ask them, Shunyan?
if I can answer them properly, and to Mike's satisfaction and delight, probably will satisfy and delight other investors and other people as well. So, so I started to see that as an opportunity, as opposed to, a discouragement or a threat. And once I changed that perspective, actually, but obviously I didn't do it immediately. I said I'll get back to you, next day, because I know, willpower is lowest at that was in the evening, right? I don't want to do that, so. But actually, the next day, there were other things. So by the end of the day, but I promised Mike I will respond, right? So I did seriously, went into flow state and just, write down everything that was on my mind. And actually, in the process, I think there was a couple of things that became a lot more clear. Okay, including signing a contract with Ian. So this is something I like to mention, is that the act of, signing a contract, of going into collaboration with Ian, I think in some way has upgraded, my mentality and how I see myself and the situation actually, quite a bit. For example, I know this is going to be an important contract, so I want to read the contract fully, right? I don't, right? I mean, before that, I only browsed through, but because since that, so what happened that day actually was, because of the time difference, I actually woke up at midnight. So I slept only 1.5 hours. I woke up midnight, and I was thinking about completing the contract like quickly so I can go back to sleep. But because I wanted to read through the contract and make sure, I understand everything, that actually it ended up taking up 4 hours. Okay, going through the contract, doing some other checks, other things, just to make sure everything. And yeah, and so, for example, part of the contract mentioned that this is advisory for, that the party will, well, basically create a utility token. Okay, not anything else. Okay, that like that was in the contract. So meaning that if we're doing anything other than a utility token or, something different, then, probably it won't be as covered as much by Ian's consultation, things like that. So that actually changed.
Utility token.
Utility, okay, so utility specifically, so it's not a security. Okay, it can be the membership to a club, okay, or have some use, the right to use some software or some application. Okay, so that's kind of utility, meaning that it's got a certain use application, I guess a use case scenario. Okay, as opposed to, a right for dividend, a right to, part of, I guess, basically, I think there is a definition for investment, in terms of you're expecting. Yeah, but anyway, that's okay. I'm not okay. I think there are materials online that explain security and utility tokens. But because going through that clause, it also, make me to rethink about what we are really trying to do. Okay, and also Mike's question. So actually it became clear to me that the most fruitful way to move forward with Ian's advisory actually is to do ICO for the tokenization platform. Okay, as opposed to, a actual real estate development project. And even if we're doing that, that should be just part of the fund. Okay, that goes into that. So, just lifetime realization. All right, so, okay, I think probably it's suitable to discuss the details in our next session, but suffice to say that what that whole experience kind of taught me was that simply by going through that motion, I think it elevated my thinking perspective and also how I'm viewing things in many different ways. Okay. Like I wasn't as serious about, you know, a real estate tokenization platform, but I think going through this whole process, now I think that is actually something more relevant and more important to do. Okay. And that actually fits better with the overall picture. Okay, so I guess that's the win. Obstacles. Okay, so the main obstacle now, I think, is to create enough incentives to align everybody's interest, you know, mostly the team. So for example, Mike's, okay, and also, you know, our current partners, the architect, you know, Alfred, and also Henry, okay, so maybe among others. So I think it's how to properly design the incentive mechanism. And that includes, I think, Mike's concern about whether it can be a profitable business. Wisdom. Okay, so basically, the guy Morgan Hauser, I think you might have known him from the book, The Psychology of Money, which is a book I think Ben Hardy recommended, which actually I like it a lot. It's one of my favorite money-related book. He talks about his new book called Same as Ever. I don't know if you know that yet, but I just saw a book review actually, kind of because the Chinese version was just published, and the author actually did a like a telecom with the a call conference with the publisher, which is a very prestigious publishing firm in Taiwan. So I got the audiobook, and just, I'm almost through it now. And he basically talks about in all the uncertainty, all the craziness of the world, there are still things that don't change. And probably it's quite worthwhile to focus on those things that don't change. Okay, so, and part of the things he talked about, so there's a lot of anti-fragility concepts, the power of compound interest, things like that. But one of the things he talked about was our inclination for rapid growth, for, speeding things up, speed up more than its natural course. Okay, so that always, according to him, always tend to backfire. Okay, in like when you are trying to like overspeed, like he cited Warren Buffett, like you can't ask 9 women to reduce the pregnancy to 1 month. Okay, by getting 9 women to do it at once. So I guess so that actually I think got me thinking. Okay, because I think right now I'm kind of following a bit of Ben's rapid transformation mindset thinking, also the 12-week year thinking, of trying to move things quickly, trying to condense time, trying to, see major jump, major leap within finite amount of time period or physical time, which I think, it's a valid phenomenon. Although I think there is also truth to Morgan's, statement, okay, an observation. So I guess the wisdom there is, well, first of all, is the book, but then I think I also am getting this better appreciation, of, I guess, both of these concepts of time. And I don't think I have yet a full comprehension yet, okay, to be frank. They appear to be conflicting on the surface, although I don't know the answer yet, but I suspect, they are not conflicting. They are actually
I
both
think
valid.
they're different ways of looking at the same thing.
Oh, different ways looking at the same thing. Oh, okay.
I don't think so. Yeah, you're right. On the surface level, it's a conflict.
Correct.
But I personally don't read it like that.
Oh,
and
okay.
I think it depends on how you view what you need to get done. So having a, like, you know, if you look at the 30-year goal, what's your big hairy goal? What's your that's your impossible task. That's your kind of, you know, 10x, 100x, whatever, right? That's that's the big thing. But you stick that on a timeline that's massive and far away, and then you chunk down into how to get things done. So you know what an oak tree looks like, right?
Right.
And if and I'm imagining you have them in China, but if you don't, you have something similar.
Big trees, right? Yeah.
And they live for hundreds of years. Okay.
Right.
Where do they start from?
An acorn, a seed.
Yeah, acorn, tiny little things.
Right.
And we've all seen one of those.
Right.
The transition from that acorn to that mighty oak that's 300-400 years old takes 300-400 years. It doesn't happen overnight, but it's a big journey. Now, there are things that you can do to fast track the process. You can cut out variables like insect and herbaceous predation. You can cut out, water kind of restriction and so on and so forth. You can create an environment or environments that speed up certain parts of that process. And thinking about, well, how can we 10x this? What can we do differently? How can we hack this forward? Are the thought processes which will make you think of new ideas and new ways of doing things and being disruptive, so that you can actually accelerate through a period. But it doesn't mean you're going to grow into a mighty oak within a week and a half. It means at some stages of the process that you're going to, by thinking like that, you're always open and always aware and always ready to see what you can do better and do quicker.
Right.
I think it's a means of accelerating thinking, but you have to remember the acorn will turn into an oak within a natural process of time. And any business will go from an idea, an acorn, to an oak through a process of time. And if you think about the S curve, it sits on a time horizon, right? And that time horizon can be any amount of time. Now, the thing about the age we live in now with Web 3.0 is people expect everything to be done really quickly. And that's one of the reasons why there's so much volatility in the markets.
Sure.
This is this unrealistic expectation about how quick things can be done. And I don't think one should sit there and necessarily say that they are conflicting. But it's about recognizing what are the, where is the accelerated program going to take? I mean, if you, that's why so many startups fail, because the natural order of things is, just because somebody has a great idea doesn't mean anybody else thinks it's a great idea. And those people who put in the seed funding, they put it in there just, or the angel funding or whatever you want to call it, they put it in there just because they're giving it a punt. They think, yeah, you know what, this might be a good idea. I'll stick a couple of grand in. Or 20, 30, 40, 50, 100,000. We'll see where it goes. But then it all falls to pot because the people in charge aren't actually managing it well. And they get predated the same way that the acorn will be eaten by a bunny rabbit or a slug or something like that, right? Or the sapling gets eaten by a sheep, or whatever the kind of thing, right? So, or there's a drought or whatever. All of these things stop the acorn from growing, or the saplings from growing, or whatever. So I think that to me was an analogy that really worked for me last week.
Okay.
And I think that you just, there are ways in which, and people sit there and go, well, you can't 100x it or 10x it. I can't, impossible goals. What does that mean? And it's like they're blocked by this idea that has to happen today.
Okay.
Doing this, I can get a year's work done in 12 weeks. Bollocks, you can't. That's a lie. You can think differently. and you can
Mhm.
think in a more inspired way, and you can achieve. You can't actually achieve. There aren't. It's physically impossible.
Mhm.
You can't make a child grow in 12 weeks the same as they do in a year.
No, at least
Right?
not
There
now.
well, anyway, there are certain limitations to what,
Right,
but we
right.
can think differently. We can
Mm.
educate more advancedly. We can
Okay.
analyze problems differently. So
Mm.
that's why I think it works. But I just think this expectation of people just going, anyway.
Mm. All right. Thanks for that feedback. It's yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I fully agree. Yeah, it's different aspect, and some things can be speed up, some cannot. Some can be speed up with a change of perspective or mindset or thinking, some can't, right? And I guess the wisdom part is you have to know which is which, right?
Yeah.
And be patient with the things that cannot speed up, and be radical and open-minded of the things that actually can.
Sorry, I've got somebody at my door. I'm just going to
Okay.
go and.
Sure. All right. All right. So I guess shall we move to the discussion phase now?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right. So I responded with some thoughts. Okay. Happy to walk through them, and also learn about your feedback, hear about your feedback.
Yeah, well, you were
So
right, and it did piss me off.
okay. So I could tell. I could tell from the.
But I mean, at the end of the day, you can
I
do
do
what you want,
apologize
really.
that. I'm
It
sorry.
doesn't, I just sat there and I thought, what's the point in talking if it? But then again, who are you? I'm not necessarily right, and and my way of thinking isn't necessarily right.
Oh, okay.
But the fact that have you read his "Read Me First" document?
Read me first. Okay. That's
Have you read it?
no. Honestly, that's something I wanted to do today, and
Okay.
Okay.
I've read it.
Okay.
It's a 13-page document,
Okay.
and there's going to be a lot of work involved getting this sorted.
Okay. Which is
And I
good.
still
Okay.
don't think
Mhm.
that, well, right now, I don't think it's anywhere near ready to do this.
Okay. Mhm.
And I think I don't think you appreciate the amount of work that's going to be involved in it.
Okay.
And if you're going to say it's okay, we can do who, not how.
Okay.
Just so you know, I would say there's around about $20,000 worth of advertising in the initial concept.
Okay.
Just what he said. He said
Okay.
anyway, on a couple of instances, he's mentioned two lots of 7,000 as a
Okay.
maximum, right?
Okay.
So all right, that's 14,000.
Right.
Well, getting that to fruition might add, another 6 of effort. So that's 20,000 in terms of advertising.
Okay. Just advertising alone, right?
Yeah, and that's not going to be paid by tokens. That's going to need hard cash. So where's that going to come from?
Okay.
Then if you're going to say who, not how on all of the items,
Right.
then you're going to have to do an awful lot of looking for people who are going to be incentivized by tokens.
Right.
That you have to assign. He's already suggested that from an advisory point of view for, let's say, for instance, we said to Chris,
Right.
"Oh, would you like to be an advisor?"
Right.
And he said, "Yes, please." His suggestion is, well, give him $50,000 worth of tokens.
Okay.
So one of things that we need to do is understand what sort of advisors we want on the board.
Right.
Why do we want them? What's their role going to be? What are we going to ask of them? What's their where are they going to help us? How are they going to? And then, what sort of remuneration are we going to offer them?
Right.
Where's that remuneration going to come from?
Okay.
So there's an awful lot to consider. And then I think even if you don't say who, not how,
Right.
Regardless of whether or not you answer that question, you apply who, not how on all the work that needs to be done.
Right.
Still think there's a good solid chunk of more than just an hour a week on this. This is like we're looking at 20 hours a week for 3 months.
Okay.
You might argue with a really good who, not how, not so much, but I still think there's an awful lot of work involved, which is fine, because if you're going to ask the world to give you $15 million,
right.
you're going to need to put. But again, that brings me back to the commitment question,
right?
Because you at the moment want to sit there and allocate all your time to other things and get other people to do stuff for you, which is fine conceptually. To achieve that, though, you need to have big pockets for that.
Okay.
Now, so that's my first response from just reading the first, the first document.
Right.
And there's a lot of stuff that I look in there and I see in there and I think, okay, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that.
Okay.
And so I'm not saying I'm not on board for this. I am on board for it.
Okay.
But I don't want to end up being the guy that does all the work and just spends a lot of time, because last year, I think the frustration I had was that last year, I ended up losing money.
Right.
And JCF didn't pay anything, got nothing out there.
Right.
So I don't want to lose money. I don't want to spend another year investing in something that isn't going anywhere. That's why I want to be certain about what the product is, what the service is, where the value is, who are we supplying to, what's the demand. So to come back to the questions that you answered, and I didn't even look at them until this morning. Because as far as I'm concerned, my weekend is my free time. So
right. That's fair. All right.
So just going at it from the top, what's the service? To help realty projects to tokenize assets, to secure funding, liquidate assets for cash. Now, I actually think there's a third one there, and that is to fund projects.
Okay.
So secure funding, you might argue, well, actually, that is to fund projects. But I think we need to, if it's secure funding, I think we need to be specific about that. And say secure funding for projects, for realty projects. Liquidate assets for cash. Why would you do that? Because you might argue that it's to, build another project or whatever. Then what you're, I guess we need to think about exactly what that is relative to what the demand is. And so the idea of where is the demand? So your potential clients are you, Henry, and the Ling family. The only demand here right now is you.
Right. True.
Unless you can get Henry and Kevin to specify exactly what they want.
Okay.
Now, if we can sit there and say, if Henry goes, well, look, here we go. I've got a project. It's this type of property. It's in this current situation. Its current value is this. I want to make these changes. These changes will cost this amount of money. And at the end of it, it'll be worth this. Both in terms of capital asset and revenue.
Okay.
That's the project. If you can make that work for me on a tokenized kind of platform and get funding for it, then I'm really happy. I'll do that today.
Okay. And I'm willing to pay a certain fee, right, for that service, for the tokenization service. Right?
I mean, And ultimately, it's going to be, he's going to pay, you know, how would he do it normally? Well, he would go to the bank, he would raise finance and yada, yada, yada.
Mhm.
Right.
Right,
So
right.
the value that we provide
Mhm.
with this has got to be better than the bank, has got to be more than the bank
Right,
or the
right.
financer or
Then traditional financing. Yeah.
or bridging, right? Because most people do it by bridging.
Okay.
But it's understanding what the market offers, right? And are we disrupting the market enough with this solution?
Okay.
Now that's important because if we can illustrate that that's where the current market is and what we can, and we've got 3 examples of projects that, you know, if the platform were up and ready, would go for it.
Okay.
The more examples we can think of, the better.
Right, right.
Not just think of, but actually have real
Right,
examples.
right. Everyone's right.
Right? So that you can sit there and say, well, with Flourish, right? The investment into Flourish will mean that Flourish will have, you know, I don't know, will generate a profit of whatever it generates. That you know, Happy 995 would generate yada yada yada. Right? They're examples, and they illustrate the fact that there is, if we can generate that, where these guys would normally pay, I don't know, 10 to 20% for finance, our project will enable it at, I don't know, 5 to 15% finance, the overall finance, right? If we can, that then becomes, you know, we've illustrated demand and we've illustrated value, right?
Right, right.
That's important because then your investor, and these questions are only about the investor's point of view. Investor can see, I can invest in this. This has got legs. So who will be supplied?
Right.
JCF via its tokenization and funding services. Okay. That's not what I meant. Tokenization, wealth, token exchange, open wealth. That's all kind of, none of that makes any sense to me, because the question who will be supplied is not, JCF is not going to be supplied. The Ling family are going to be supplied, right?
Oh, so the
is
question was about who is going to be the clients? Is that more like, what's the question?
Yeah, because it's supply and demand, right? So where's the demand coming from? Well, the demand is coming from the people you're going to be supplying, right?
Oh, okay. I took the question as who are the clients and who are the providers, service providers.
Yeah, no, who will be supplied, right?
Who will be supplied. Okay.
So, and the thing is, from there, you got demand from these examples, 1, 2, 3. What are the profile of the people that you want? Who are your avatars, right, of your customers?
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So you've got these listed as current potential clients, right? Well, what does the actual client, you know, what's the profile of the actual client? Well, it is a developer, a property landlord, you know, in any country. You know, what do they look like? Well, they're kind of, you know, I don't know, they're 40 plus, male or female. They've probably got a portfolio. They manage estates. They build their agents and build property portfolios for other people. The scale from being one landlord wanting to raise, you know, 200,000 to realize a £300,000 property investment, or it can be, you know, an organization that develops a plot for, you know, $50 million to create 200 million.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
If it's,
so
that's what we're,
very specific profile, right?
Yeah, which is what we've learned from ClickFunnels, from FreeHag, right? So we're just applying our learning. But that's who we're supplying, so that now we can say, well, we've got demand, right? We've got some evidence of people that want it. we've then got some evidence about how we're developing it, who we're supplying to.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, I don't know why you're doing that, but because that's where is the demand? Well, the demand's in the people that you've just, the current clients. Right?
Okay, right. Mm-hmm.
So, and then that gives examples of that. You see, that's telling.
So you're still okay. So you want the specific,
right?
Okay,
so,
yeah.
And then you can be specific about where's the future supply going to come from.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
By saying the Ling family and Henry and the Hugh family, then all you're doing is you're saying, well, this is a drop in the ocean.
Right. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Where else could we get, where's a scope for this?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Further down, you use the global and Taiwanese.
Right. The market estimate, right.
From 21, we'll come to that. But essentially, if you're going to use that as an example later on, then you're going to need to sit there and tell if we're going to be a source of bridging or finance for other developers and landlords, then what's the, how big is that kind of pie?
Okay, right.
If we're going to aim for 1% of global production, well, if it's a $30 trillion global production, then we want 1% of that.
Right. That's the market estimate here, I think.
Yeah, I'll come back to that.
Right.
But let's go through point by point. So this is the logic about why we're asking these questions and why we're structuring it.
Right.
Okay. So how are we creating value? How is this product that we're offering is going to, so bridge projects with global funding sources? Yes. Allow ownership to be distributed, liquidated. How is that creating value? To who? Right.
Okay.
Bridging projects with global funding, but you see, here's the thing. Why is that of value? So what?
Okay.
So bridging global sources. Okay, well, there's any number of different finance houses that do that. I can go to a bank and do that. Why would it be value?
Okay.
Who's it to?
Okay.
It's value to the people that can be supplied. It's a value to them. And that's hard to get finance. Well, you see, again, hard to get finance. There's a reason for that. The reason it's hard to get is because the project isn't going to work.
Okay. Or it's the either it doesn't work or the collateral, I guess the from the bank's perspective isn't sufficient.
Yeah, okay, that's a good point. So it's those that are we've got to be able to overcome those pain points.
Right.
And that then tells you that if we're not clear about that, then why are we doing the ICO? Why do you want to do an ICO for something that isn't delivering value to other people?
Okay.
Because if it's not creating value, if it's not delivering value, then it's not. Where's the profit? Why would it be profitable? Why would anybody go for it that is a user? So if a user isn't interested, why should an investor be interested? It's got to create value.
Right.
And that's exactly what Dan tells us, right?
Right.
This is part of what being an entrepreneur is that you think about where you take your experience and your knowledge, right? Your knowledge, your abilities, your skills, and your habits, right? And you turn that into something which will create value for other people. So I think then it's enabling funding, which is either lower cost, and also up to 100% of the LTV.
Right.
Those two will be significant enough for any sort of like developer, landlord to go, well, if it's going to cost me less, and I can go LTV, LTV at 100%. LTV stands for loan to value.
Okay.
So if I can get my loan to value at 100%, now the risk then to the company that's doing the lending is, well, if I'm loaning you 100% of the value, then I'm all in on the risk here. Why should I be cheaper than anybody else? And the thing there is that what you do then is you say, well, okay, of the loans that we get out, that's where our risk criteria, and you talk about how you can understand the risk of the property and the project. And that's why I would say that, when last week when we spoke about your project, that it's already, you're asking for 5 million, but we've already worked out that it's going to make a 2.4 million loss. So
I think the number came up with as a 4.6 million, I think, the value in the end. So
okay,
right. There's a gap. There's a gap. Yeah.
Okay. So you wouldn't go for that. Then you would probably go for maybe raising 4 million, and then hope then work out a plan to still reach your 4.6, but with 4 million.
Right.
Sorry, I've got another call coming in. Let me just quickly see who this is.
Okay. All right.
Mike Hensworth. Oh, right, yes.
I was just calling to confirm a few details.
All right.
Sorry.
No worries. All right. So, okay. All right.
Well, I've got 15 minutes.
All
So,
right. I think you have about 15 minutes. Yeah.
Okay. So what's the profit? The profit is, again, this is in terms of what's the profit for the investor.
Okay. Right.
So what's the profit? I mean, you can argue, in fact, there's two answers to this question. What's the profit for the investors, and what's the profit for us doing it?
Right.
Fine. You raise 150 million, and Ian gets 1.5 million and 4 more Ethereum, right?
Right.
Which, okay. That's
So
his
my answer is that, we'll charge 10%, right? To the I don't know if that should be the right color. Yeah, we'll charge 10% for fundraise. This is, because Ian is charging us 10% to do the ICO raise. And, that's something we've accepted. So I figure it's something, on a market condition should be reasonable, to advertise. And
but who are you charging 10%?
So for the people who are doing the project, that's doing the fundraise. Right.
So if I raise $1 million,
right,
let's use your example. You want to raise raise 5 million,
right?
So this project will charge 10% for that 5 million.
Right. So we'll be charging basically 5%. Sorry, we'll be charging, if it's 5 million and if it's fully raised, then through this mechanism, we'll charge 0.5 million, right? So 500K. Yeah.
500.
Right.
So that's our fee. That's our fee, right? That's us.
Right. No, and it has the breakdown here. Split between the platform and the advisors. Okay.
Yeah, so that's the way we divide. So basically, the person wants 5 million. We raise 5 million. They take away 4.5.
Right.
The JCF component, the business, keeps 500,000, and the JCF business, and we've got to find a different name for it, will pay out from that 500,000 percentages to all of these
To the
elements.
advisors. Yeah, right.
Right. Okay. So
And
that's
there is a comparison. So Kickstarter, this is how much they're charging. They actually charge if you raise by credit cards 8%, 8% literally. 5% is to Kickstarter, 3% is for Stripe, the credit card payment service. They charge 3%. So for any Kickstarter project, if people pay by credit card, which most of them do, it's 8%, out of the window. I mean, as a sort of a service fee that people are really willing to accept. So 10%, I think, if it's even bigger amounts, better investors, faster, I think there should be value to that, right?
okay. So 10%. So you're then saying that 250,000 goes to JCF, and then 250,000 goes to the ICO.
To the advisors, right? And we can actually work with different advisors, right? Ian will be one of them, but potentially we could sign up other advisors as well, right? Different styles, different industry.
Is it?
I'm sorry?
That won't work with Ian because he wants 10%.
No. Ian wants 10% because it's a one-time. But if we work with him as a long-term, advisor collaborator, and to SOP this is something to be discussed with him, right? Because it's a matter of leverage, and it's a matter of leverage and effort, right? If his effort is minimal, and we are kind of a channel for him, for clients, right? We become kind of like a channel for him because projects could come through us, right? And find him.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, paying channel fee, that's a common business practice. Like, I'm selling online course. I know if I go to an influencer who advertise my course, I'm willing to pay 50% of the course sales with that channel. That's the market rate actually. If it's a good influencer, that's it can be up to 50% actually. Yeah.
But anyway, okay, fine. So that's the profit in it for JCF, but where's the profit in it for the investor? What are they getting out of it?
They gain the actual fundraise, right? Which otherwise they may not be able to raise any funds, or would take a long time.
Wrong one. Profit. So I'm gonna.
For the investors. Okay, I see. For the investors,
I'm invest in the ICO, right? So what's the profit for me? And this question is important because this is part of the offer.
Okay.
I'm going to invest $1,000 or.
How about at least 10% ROI in terms of what the investor projects that at least pay this amounts, right?
Well, where's that 10% from?
So that has to be from the project, So basically, we act as the filter, to screen out projects to make sure that the projects at least return this, at least from the numbers, from the models that the developer, the project owner provides, which is exactly what you're doing to the Flourish project last week, right? You were trying to gauge to see if there is a proper ROI, from your investment as an investor. That's exactly the thing we can do to other, whether it's the Ling family, whether it's Henry's project, right? And by doing so, and maybe advising for how to make it work. For example, like I already have, think of a few ways that to probably bring down the cost to do the Flourish project. If the Flourish project upon completion is worth 4.6 million, then I should find a way to bring the cost down to less than 4.6. And I think I already have some ideas about how to make that happen.
Okay.
Right?
Okay, no, that's a good point, but let's focus in on what we're talking about here, which is the profit for that. So you're saying that the profit for JCF is 10%.
Right.
And that's actually not the profit.
It's the fund, you know, that's kind of the, yeah, the service fee. That's the service fee. That's the service
Right.
fee.
So
Yeah.
what's the profit for it?
So that depends on how much effort JCF is, you know, how much effort JCF is putting. What's the cost of the effort, right? To secure that.
Right. But I mean,
right?
that's really important, okay? Because
Mhm.
if you're fundraising and you want to raise 15 million, then you're going to pay people for that 15 million.
Right, right.
If you pay people for that 15 million, that's going to
Right.
come out of the fees that you charge, right?
Right,
So
right. Exactly.
fundamentally, because the value of the company is going to come out from how successful you are as a company, or
Exactly.
you get bankrupt.
Right.
And so you don't want to be taking the risk
Mhm.
of moving forward with the ICO and gaining 15 million if you can't make it work as a project, and if you don't know that your profit margins are big enough. Because if you're only making 1 or 2%, and that's 1 or 2% of 100,000, then that's not the same as making 1 or 2% of a billion.
True, true.
But you have to understand that to understand whether or not you've got a viable product or not.
Right, right.
And it's not a case of, well, the overall market
So
share.
I think there is a analysis in the ROI part. I think that's the kind of the ROI. So I'll make a quick highlight here. Okay.
Yeah, I get the market is there, but you're breaking into a market that is already established with already existing platforms which are trusted by everybody.
Right. True.
So by being a disruptor, what we have to be clear about is how the disruption is of benefit to all parties.
Right,
So
right.
you are one of the parties from the point of view if you've got Flourish. You are one of the parties from the point of JCF. And other people are parties from wanting to, you want other people to invest in JCF so that we can leverage this, right?
Exactly. Right.
So you've got to answer the question, is it profitable to pay for those people that are going to invest? And is it profitable once you've paid for them that you're going to actually take home some money? Because otherwise, what's the point?
Right. So that's the rough estimate answer, right?
But
that's
you've put that in ROI, and that's kind of not what the ROI question was about. But anyway, that's a rough estimate.
Right. That's a rough estimate. Yes.
Based on what? The assumption that you might gain 5% market share.
Right. And
Maybe.
also we will be charged, which means that that's the you know, how much this is the real estate investment. So this is how much, you know, kind of purchase you know, like buy and selling, you know, of houses. That's so the assumption would be we are, you know, creating you know, fundraising mechanism for these, you know, these property trades essentially, and you know, play a role in that. So if we capture 5% of that, that's, you know, 3.27 billion, and we take, because we take 10%, right, of the fund raised. So that would be, I mean, for JCF it's 5%, right? So that's what's expected. And that divided by 15 million, that would be a 10x, close to 11x ratio in terms of what that 15 million world, you know, is expected to create when we capture 5% of the market share.
Okay.
Obviously, we don't stop there. You know, we definitely want more market share than just 5%, but that gives you an idea, right? Even with just a 5% market share, that's the amount we're looking at.
And for you and me, just talking about it, that all seems plausible.
Right.
If you're asking somebody to put 15 million on the table, they're going to want a lot more evidence than just what is essentially the back of an envelope.
Right.
Now, which is why Ian talks about the pitch deck, all of this kind of stuff, because you've got to be able to illustrate to the market. And this is why banks and lenders have analysts and all of that infrastructure, because they want to sit there and provide evidence to their investors that what they're doing is of value.
Right. True.
So it's not just about, well, okay, I reckon if we could get, why would you get 5%?
Okay.
Or to be more positive, why would you not get 50%?
Right.
Right. So, and I think, and that's really important, because if we really know that we are disruptive in what we're putting forward, if we really do believe that it's going, then we shouldn't be aiming at 5%. We should be aiming at 50%.
Yeah. 50% in 10 years, 5% in 3 years, something like that, right?
Well, maybe not. I mean,
okay, right.
Maybe shorter time frames. But because I think the point is, it's like, and here's the thing, if it's really that good, then you've just built a model that works. And if you build a model that works, then you're going to have every bank in the world wanting to buy you out.
Right. Potentially, yes, because we're a better funding mechanism, right?
Yeah, and you'll have built a tech, even if it's to shut you up.
Yes, true, right.
However, if you go back up to the, where's the profit question?
Right. Okay. So that's the profit part, right?
Yeah, I just think this is what I think is, and then here's the other thing from the person, and we need to sort out our terminology so that so it's easier. So from the developer's perspective, what does that mean in terms of cost to them? So if you're saying that the tokenization is going to cost 10% and the profit for investors is 10%,
right,
is that 10% cumulative?
So no, it's a one time. So what does that mean? It's basically, if you can get a 2% like loan from bank, right? That equates to 2% loan from bank times 5 years. So, in terms of cost of capital, that's 10% is roughly something like that, right? So I don't know if this is going to be part of our value proposition, but another thing that potentially we can add more value to our clients, whether the developers or the investors. So for example, on the investors, it's like better proper due diligence check, right? And for the developers, it could be maybe like advisory to lower costs and labors with some of the latest technology, right? With some of the latest tools and technology, like prefab building construction approach, right? Things like that, or I guess.
That's a different.
Right.
Don't go down.
Right. I mean, that's a different thing. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, we try to increase the value, right? Increase as a package, as a solution, right?
Yeah. I think also what's clear here is that we need to have be clear on our terminology, and then also be clear about what each question means to each stakeholder.
Right.
So if you've got a stakeholder which is developer, stakeholder which is investor,
right,
and then a stakeholder which is Shunyun and Mike's personal wallets,
right,
because everything that we do in terms of creating this and investing time and effort into, I want to know what money I'm going to get out of it at the end of it.
Right. Okay.
Although I don't think about that as being a wage, but I do need to know that when I put a deal together, it's going to make.
Right. True. And I think that's.
what's the point?
Right, exactly. That
But
and
I know
oh,
at the beginning when I'm structuring the deal, how much money I'm going to make, and in consequence, how much money I can negotiate. I've got room for negotiating with for other
right,
people.
right, exactly.
And this is
And
what this is why I'm not clear about all of this, because it just, what we're talking about now is slightly different, because last week we were talking about blending this flourish with this ICO idea and all the rest of it. Now we're going down a very different path, and it's kind of like, well, we're focusing in on creating a platform
right,
that will create a funding mechanism for developers worldwide.
right,
See, that's the tangible kind of service. That's understandable and it's clear. I think now being clear about where the money is and how we're going to make it.
right,
And I think, you know, you're saying you want 15 million.
right.
And I think also the way in which you presented it to Ian when he did his due diligence and you started talking about flourish, you leveraged that.
Right, right. It's so I explained, you know, also in the 3 stages. You know, I'll just quickly jump, you know, 10 million actually would be kind of a investment fund to sort of jumpstart.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. You probably should go now. Yeah. All right. So
can you see though, there's a lot to be answered here, Shunyun, and these questions weren't directed at you in an angry way, or I wasn't up, you know, it wasn't doing it. I just wanted to understand. Look,
yes,
these are basic business questions.
Right, right. So I was very appreciative and happy to answer them the best I could.
All right, I still think there's some work here to be done, and I, you know, whilst you've, you know, anyway, okay, fine.
Okay.
Next sync is when?
Well, it's supposed to be next week, but we can do one on Thursday if you like.
I think that would be advisable.
Thursday at 12 your time. Okay, I got I mean, I've got oh, actually Thursday we can do at 11 as well, if you like, because I think,
11.
I'm sorry?
Personally, I would prefer 11. If we
All right, let's do 11, Thursday 11, Thursday 11. Okay, all right.
All right.
Okay, all right. Fantastic. And happy to have you on board.
I didn't know I wasn't.
But I think you were kind of forced, right?
An element of that.
All right. Take care. Take care.
All right, see you later.
Yeah. Take care. Bye bye. Bye bye.